Good afternoon, everyone. This is Enrique Sanchez, founder and director of Spanish United. Today on the show, we have a very special guest. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Hi, my name is Jillian Burgos, and I'm running for Los Angeles City Council District 2.
Welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
As we had spoken a couple times, I commend you for, running for council. I think there needs to be more Hispanic Latino representation, especially that a lot of Hispanics face a lot of eviction, and we tend to be victims of predatory landlords. So one of the things that we would like to discuss on Spanish United would be what made you get into politics, what made you decide to, run for council, and also to discuss the issue of the housing crisis, the homelessness, and the issue affecting our community today.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So first, I guess we'll start off with why I'm running. Um, I'm a Boricua, Puerto Rican. I'm Afro-Latina, and I'm a small business owner. I'm a lifelong renter, and I've always had an interest in politics. I don't really consider myself a politician, but I do feel that I have been called to lead. And I've lived in North Hollywood for over 15 years, and I've become deeply invested in the people of my community. Initially, I was really, really inspired by the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2015 of the Not Me, Us. Really, just like his message of helping the person you will never meet, and that making sure that people, have their basic needs met, really, really spoke to me. And so I really wanted to run, and I was ready to go. And I kind of had to put my life on pause for a little bit because my mother, uh, she's my hero. She started showing signs of Alzheimer's or dementia.
Hmm.
And I had to become her power of attorney. And that took several years of my life. And I'm an only child. So my mother lives in Ohio,
Hmm.
originally from Cleveland, Ohio. LA is my chosen home. And so I spent the next 4 years of my life flying cross country. And, I couldn't have done it without the help of my cousins. So,
Hmm.
my cousins, they're like my siblings, and we're really close. And they helped me when I couldn't be there. And so once we got my mom safe, I was really excited. And then I started losing some of my cousins to things like poverty, things that should have never happened.
Hmm.
One of them was my cousin Yolanda Liz Dominguez. We called her Lala, and she was always the life of the party. And Lala just was a tremendous person, a good mother to three beautiful children. And she would drop anything to help you. She would give you the shirt off her back.
Hmm.
And Lala lived in low income housing. And what we didn't know was her housing had black mold in it. And she was a severe asthmatic. It was also
Hmm.
deemed a rampant crime area because, that's what they do to us Black and Brown people.
Right.
And they blocked off the entryway to her apartment complex. She had a severe asthmatic episode, called for an ambulance, and it couldn't get to her on time. And that
Hmm.
broke, like, losing her. She was my younger cousin, but she was my hero. And so I decided, it really drove me into a deep, dark place for a moment that morning, because I loved her so much.
Hmm.
And I decided, hey, I could let this drag me down, or I could let her not die in vain, and I could fight for people to not lose the pillars of their family, fight for
Hmm.
people to have good, safe, affordable housing, fight for people to be valued and treated like people.
Hmm.
And so that really just like ignited me to run for the NoHo Neighborhood Council. And I was elected. I became treasurer, and I became the chair of what was the homelessness committee. On my first day, I renamed it to Housing and Services because homelessness is a policy failure, and it is a housing issue.
Hmm.
So I really, really wanted to make that message heard. And I was able to pass grants that have fed our unhoused neighbors, grants that have given mental health care to at-risk youth, and grants that have kept renters housed, that have taught renters their rights. And that way they don't fall victim to predatory landlords. And I just feel like, wow, that was just on an advisory level. What could I actually do at city council? And especially when we heard those LA Fed tapes, those hurtful tapes,
Mhm.
it really ignited me to run. And that's why I'm running. I'm running to fight for Black and Brown communities, our Latinos. We don't have Latino representation
Mhm.
here in the district, yet we make up 43% of the district. And
Mhm.
I would be only the second woman to have ever been elected to this position. So that's what really inspired me to run. And I hope to earn people's vote on by March 5th.
Impressive, because one of the things that I've spoken to with many people that are Latinos, that one of the reasons why they don't vote or they're political primarily because they feel a disconnection with many politicians, or the fact that there's not too many Hispanic people that are, running for office. So I really commend you what you're doing, because there needs to be transparency and oversight within the Hispanic community, because a lot of districts, or let's say predatory landlords, feel that Hispanic people, since they tend to be passive aggressive, they think that even if they have a legitimate concern, that it just falls on deaf ears. So that's very good, because I'm very familiar with Valley Village, and Valley Village is, even though it's diverse community, but you have a very large Jewish community there that's Orthodox, and I do have to say that if the landlords don't do what they're supposed to do, the Jewish community will make sure that they will not be managing property no more. That's a fact. So Hispanic people need to start doing the same, because again, we are a large minority, but yet we tend to be pushed aside by everybody else. So I really commend you for what you're doing, and my condolences, for your aunt, and for your family. I know how that is. I had an aunt that recently passed away not too long ago, and it was kind of a similar situation. She lived in a poor neighborhood, and when she passed away, it took a while for the ambulance to get there. So I know how that is.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I also want to talk about the issue of the housing crisis, because as you know, a lot of people on the conservative far right side always like to put the blame that it's the liberals and the Democrats that want to give everything for free. They want to tax everyone to death, and that's the reason why everything is so high. So, like, how would you dispute that in the terms of why we have the issue of the lack of rent control, why rents are so expensive, and why so many people are being affected by homelessness? That's another question, we have.
Thank you. Yes, yes. So housing is my passion. I myself am a lifelong renter, and I have faced housing insecurity for much of my life. And my mother always instilled in me the values of helping others, of being of service. So like growing up, we were in a 2-bedroom apartment, and we took in, it was my mom, me, and mi abuela before she passed away. And we took in my aunt and her daughter and her granddaughter. So there was, 5 of us crammed into this little teeny 2-bedroom apartment, because that's what you do. You protect family. You keep each other safe.
Absolutely.
And so housing instability, it's really funny when they blame, liberals, Democrats, progressives, whatever you want to call us, when they blame us for the way things are. This is gone back. This spans decades. And it stems back to the lack of building housing, from redlining, which, really affects Black and Brown communities, and Article 34. So we need, the state government to repeal Article 34, and the Ellis Act, which, really forces people to leave, a lot. It's a lot of loopholes in the Ellis Act that landlords use to force people to be evicted from their places. And we need to continue changing zoning laws to build more housing and remove that red tape that causes, new housing to be caught up in the court system. So I think we have that opportunity, especially this time around with these elections. And I hope that, the Latinos, we have a lot of power. There's a lot of us. And I hope that we do not resign that power and sit this one out. I hope that we get invigorated and go out and vote. The ballots are out there right now. And because we have in every single district, we have someone that is willing, who is a public servant, running as a public servant. I think the problem stems from is we've had years and years of corporate servants, people who are, they're in the pockets of corporations, they're in the
Mm,
pockets of special interests. But right now, we have people like myself, we have Isabel Jurado in CD14, we have Aura Vasquez in CD10. We have a real chance for people who are not afraid to stand up to the status quo, who will stand up for people. And, so I think that we can change that. We can invest in social housing. The government can get involved and actually purchase housing. Also community land trusts where we give, the renters over time the ability to actually own their place. I mean, we have lost out on I feel like now 2 generations have lost out on generational wealth of being able to pass it on to their children, of being
mm.
able to pass it on to other family members and have a real legacy. And I think it's like we need to stand up and fight because, when we get together as Latinos, you can't stop us. When we fight, we do win.
Right. I agree with you, but I feel that in the arena of politics, when it comes to the actual social justice, for some reason it tend to be lacking. So I do agree with you. There needs to be a collective among Hispanics, regardless if we are Mexican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Dominican, Central American. What unites us is that we have the same language and same culture. Like I even spoken with Asians that when people think of Asians, they think that just because they look the same, they speak the same language, and they're even more divided just the fact that they speak a different language. Asians have told me that Hispanics, we have something more in, we have something more in common to work together because we all speak the same language. So I think it's very important. There needs to be Hispanic unity. Like one of the reasons why I started Spanish United is to promote Hispanic unity among Hispanic people. Because like you said, when we are in numbers, we could pretty much overpower everyone. But again, we cannot do it as individual people, but we have to do it as a collective because
Yes, absolutely.
we need to be taken seriously. And I do agree with you that all this red tape needs to be removed because over time it becomes unsustainable. There are people that have to live 3 or 4 hours away so that way they could just afford rent. And I think in the long term it becomes unsustainable because people cannot commute 3 or 4 hours just to go to work, especially where they live. There is no work. It's like a lot of people live in the Antelope Valley, they live in the Inland Empire, and they would rather live there, but they have to work here because there's no work out there. There's no jobs. So there needs to be some type of compromise where people can
Absolutely.
eventually own their homes. Like, for example, in many European countries, for example, like Norway, for example, the Nordic countries, you know, they have resolved their homeless issue by not only giving affordable housing to people that are addicts or mentally ill, but at the same time providing rehabilitation. Like the government will pay people from the government to come and do an intake on people, talk to them, get do an intake on what they need, and then they'll provide. And most people in the Nordic countries, even though they say it is expensive because taxes are very high, but they see the result that they don't have the issue of people that cannot afford where they live or they're on the street because they provide for them. Like in the state of California,
Absolutely.
in the state of California, for example, is one of the wealthiest states in the union. Like if California was its own country, we would be the fifth largest economy in the world after Britain and after Germany. And yet, even though we are prosperous and progressive in many ways, we're falling short in many aspects. And a lot of it has to do that there's a red tape, and also in many red states, a lot of the poor people are being dumped here. So that creates a further problem with the people that are already here in poverty. So that really needs to change.
And I love that you brought that up, Enrique, because housing as a human right is the major part of my platform. And that's basically ensuring that we invest in all types of housing, especially, low income and affordable housing, but also we got to think about the missing middle because the middle class is shrinking. And a lot of Latinos were the middle class and they're
Right.
getting pushed out. and they're getting pushed further away. And I believe that everybody should be able to work one job and be able to afford your rent, be able to afford your bills, be able to put food on the table and enjoy their lives. And that, so there is something deeply wrong in our society, because right now that's not happening. People have to work multiple jobs. They have to live with multiple people, and they have to keep going further and further out. So we have to, we have to change the system. Other things that I'm pushing for are a 15-minute city model. And that's, changing, again, going back to changing the zoning laws. So like we can have businesses on the bottom, which is more like a European way, the businesses on the bottom, the housing on the top in near transit oriented areas. So like near the metro stations, and focusing a lot of low income housing there, so people can, they can live above where they work, and they can, go to the grocery store. They can walk to the grocery store if they want to. There should be a hospital nearby. There should be a bank, a post office, a school. All the essential necessities should be within 15 minutes of you. And you shouldn't be stuck in traffic for 2 to 3 hours just to go to work.
Oh, I
Uh,
agree with you.
yeah. And I think, oh, no, I think you and I are very, very aligned. And I love that. I also think that we need to crack down on, these corporate landlords, these corporate property owners that are buying up all the property, that are, they're basically fluctuating the prices of the real estate market and making it so people can't afford to ever own a home. I want to own a home one day. It's the American dream. That's
So do I.
why some of us moved here. That's why, some of us are, struggling so hard, because we want that, it's it's what they tell you since when you were a little kid, you're going to have a house with a white picket fence, and you're going to
Right.
have a family. And for a lot of people, that's just a dream that's fleeting, that's going away, and it shouldn't be that way. And we have to fight any way possible to make that happen. But I think that, we have to hold corporations accountable, because they're taking everything over. We always bail out corporations when they
Right.
need help, but we need to bail
Absolutely.
out the people this time. We need to bail out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you actually brought up an interesting point. Like, a lot of people always say government is the problem, but I've always noticed that not once do people ever say corporations is the problem. When I've had arguments or discussions with, people from all sides of the spectrum, I always tell them government is a problem to a point, but corporation is also a problem. Today, the government doesn't really have control over what's done today. It's corporations. Corporations or special interest groups are the ones that run our government or run our society. Like in my mom's era, back then it wasn't corporate. It was mom and pop shops, and it was more personal, where if you worked at a job for, let's say, 40 years and you were loyal, not only you will move up, but you were treated, like family, like respect. You were grafted in. Since the 1970s, when things start to become corporate, that's when poverty and a lot of social problems started, because when everything becomes corporate, it's like every worker becomes re, replaceable. So that brings production down, it brings productivity down, and people don't work as hard, not because they don't want to work, because it's like, why am I going to be loyal to a company for, let's say, 20 years of my life, and let's say all of a sudden my boss wants to fire me because he wants to downsize, and he wants to send manufacturing overseas. So that causes
Mhm.
workers to become demoralized. It's not that workers don't want to work. That's a myth. Workers do
It is
want
a
to
myth.
work. The problem
Mhm.
is a lot of workers feel that if I work too much, all of a sudden they're gonna lay me off, and then I'm not gonna get any benefit at the end. So that really needs to change. Like, corporations are the biggest danger, not only towards our country, but also towards the American worker, because it throws everybody out of a job. It really does, and
Yes.
it hurts everyone. So I really believe that corporations need to have oversight, and there needs to be more regulation when it comes to making decisions, because when you have corporations that pretty much have everything, it becomes what's called a monopoly.
Hmm.
And monopolies have shown over time that they can be dangerous, because there's no free competition. If one person holds all the wealth, then nobody else can compete.
Oh yeah, look at, I mean, Amazon, they're that puts a lot of small businesses out, with their even though they claim to have, open shops to people that they can sell on Amazon, but it still really hurts them because it's under one big corporation. And as we all know, Jeff Bezos makes more money than we will in our lifetimes in one day, in 1 hour.
Hmm. And I always ask myself, how is that even possible? How is that even allowed? That someone can make so much money, when they sleep.
I definitely think, unfortunately, in city council, we can't do this, but I'm hoping, our Congress will, eventually have a wealth tax. And I think that's one of the biggest things is that there used to be a wealth tax. And when that went away is when we really started, like you were saying, around the 70s. I think that's around when it went away. That's when you start
Correct.
seeing the problems, is when that wealth tax went away. And it's not like, so we're really talking about taxing 100,000 people. That's really what this wealth tax will affect. It's not a lot of people. That's like, that's less people than are here in District 2. There's
Hmm.
264,000 people in District 2. So if that puts that in perspective for you, it's that small of amount of people. And we could end homelessness with a wealth tax. We could actually end homelessness. We could fund free college and education. And we could actually have a chance at prosperity for all people. And so, I'm hoping that 2024 is the year of change. I'm very, very, I love to be optimistic about it, especially just because I see the opportunity that we have here
Hmm.
in Los Angeles to change things, and that people are hopefully awake. I know, I know my friends are awake. I'm just hoping that the rest of the community,
Hmm.
we're trying to get them ignited and pumped up to build community solidarity, especially like after this year of strikes, after we saw that the workers were facing, unprecedented power from corporations trying to silence their voices. And we stood up. I was on the strike lines with these people, and we stood up and we fought back, and we won in many cases over and
Hmm.
over again. And I'm just hoping that people aren't tired, because I know nearly a year of strikes was tiring for some people. I hope people get reignited, and I hope people are just ready to keep going, because that's our collective power, is when we all get together and we band together, Latinos, all different types of Latinos. We get together with the Black people. If we get together with the Asian people, we can really, really make some monumental change.
Oh, absolutely. And Hispanics need to understand that they cannot vote against their own interests. Because one of the conversations that I had with Constantine is that if you want to reach out to the Hispanic people, you have to reach them where they are. Because many Hispanic people, they tend to be induced primarily because a lot of them are social conservatives and religious. So a lot of the conservatives like to manipulate that and make Hispanic people vote against their interests. So I think that's something that, if you want to reach out to your constituents, you have to reach them out in a way that they understand that every time they vote, they have to vote what's going to benefit their interest, not necessarily on a social conservative level, but on a social level. How is it going to provide protections for us? Because that's how people should vote. They shouldn't vote necessarily because of their social value. They should vote because of their survival values, is I would call it.
Yeah, definitely. I like to say to the Latinos that are, I grew up religious. I grew up in a Lutheran background. Right now, I like to say that kindness is my religion. But I mean, if we're talking about religion, you know, um, if you worship Jesus, Jesus wanted to protect everyone, wanted people to, be fed, be housed, be clothed, and he hung out with all types of people.
Hmm.
So people that were different than him.
Hmm.
And I think that we need to really remember that, and and make that a part of our lives.
Oh, absolutely. And me, myself, coming from a religious background, I come from a mixed background. My father being Jewish and my mother being Jehovah's Witness. I am currently Lutheran myself. Actually, I converted a couple of years ago. But
Oh,
one of
wow.
the things that I value about of Jesus is that he taught about looking after those that cannot defend themselves. Like one of the verses that he mentioned is that we're going to be judged by how we treat the least among us. It's like even Bernie Sanders mentioned that,
Mhm.
we should be judged not by how many billionaires we have, but how we take care of the most vulnerable and the less fortunate, which, we're not doing right now. It's like we care more about the billionaires who don't care about us than looking after those that are marginalized.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you on that.
And one final note is, if once you become elected to a city council, like what would be one of the first things that you would do, like you would enact or try to enact?
Yeah. Wow. There's so many things. So this is such a loaded question because I have a lot of things I want to do. I think one thing is I always hear from people that, our current council member, Paul Krikorian, has been in office since 2009. And I say, what has been your experience with your current council member? And they're like, I've never heard from them. I've emailed them, I've called them, I've had these problems, I've had these issues, and I've reached out for help and I have been ignored. And I think one of the things that I always preach is building community solidarity. And so, in order to do that, I think we need to change one city council meeting a week to either an evening or a weekend. So the people that are working during the day can actually engage with their government without having to take off a day off of work and travel downtown. I think we need to make ourselves more accessible. And my team will definitely answer phone calls, emails. We're doing it now. We're doing the work right now. If you check out my social media, I make videos that teach people how to use 311, that teach people about what to do in a weather situation, that teach people what resources are out there. And so I really want to be a community advocate. I want to be a partner with the community. So I don't think I'm better than anyone else because I
Mm-hmm.
am one of you. So
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely one thing. The other thing obviously is going to be the housing, fighting for renters. The biggest thing is so every day 226 people um, fall into homelessness and only 206 people exit it. So every day we gain an additional 20 people falling into homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just like we're digging ourselves in a hole, it's just getting deeper and deeper. So we have to address it. And Latinos are the most rent burdened. And so we definitely need to make sure we protect them. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that the people who are living on the streets, they work, they have
Mm-hmm.
jobs. Not all of them, but a lot of them have
Mm-hmm.
jobs and they hide it. They hide their homelessness very well.
Mm-hmm.
They either living in their cars, they're staying on a friend or family's couch. Those people are unhoused because they do not have their own place to call their
Mm-hmm.
own.
Oh,
And the
I
next
know.
day they may be out on the street. So I think we got to do whatever we can to protect them. I think also the mismanagement of money when it comes to housing and homelessness is astronomical. And so I feel like I deeply understand what needs to happen. We need to have housing first, but you can't just have housing first. We have to have it with wraparound services.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to treat each person case by case,
Mm-hmm.
find out what's going on with them. um are you not feeling well? Do you have an illness? Are you needing job training? Are you needing mentorship?
Mm-hmm.
Are you needing mental health care? All of that has to be in place in order to help somebody go from unhoused to housed and for
Absolutely.
people to stay housed too.
Yes, that's what we do in Spanish United. Like, eventually we want to get a community center. We're in the process of trying to, raise funds and, get funding. One of the things that we're doing on a grassroots level is going on case-to-case basis. Like a couple of years ago, there was a group of homeless people that was under the bridge in between the county line of Glendale and Burbank. So, me and my mother did a case basis, and all those people there were not on drugs or anything. A lot of them worked. A lot of them had, like you were saying, a lot of them were displaced because of lack of rent control. So luckily, I was able to talk with a few politicians, and they were able to, be moved into the tiny homes that are in Eagle Rock. So we were able to save those 20 people. But
Wow.
it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and also there needs to be volunteers. People also need to understand that it's not about getting paid all the time. Yes, getting paid is, important, but people have to learn that you have to also give back, like donate your time. Like, one of the things that we emphasize in Spanish United is not, just to, get paid to do what you do, but also, giving back to the community is not giving money. It's also donating your time, talking to people, organizing, letting people know that you're available, because a
Mhm.
lot of people don't have access, to these types of resources, or know where to go. So, that's what we're trying to do in the long term. So I want to tell you, Jillian, thank you so much for being a guest. We were able to cover all the topics. And for your listeners in your district too, who want to reach out to me, we are on all social media platforms. We are on Spanish United Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube. And as soon as I finish here, I will text you and email you the link to the podcast. You could share it with, everyone that you know.
Amazing. I am so excited. Thank you, Enrique. You are amazing. Your mom, is the most adorable and amazing. And she really is. And thank you for having me. I hope to earn people's vote. I hope to be accessible to the community, and my work will still continue regardless of the outcome of this election. And I understand the struggles of Latinos and renters. And like I said, I'm here to be a public servant, to be of service. And I'm doing it just because I love the community.
Likewise, it's a pleasure. Have yourself a wonderful afternoon, and stay dry and stay warm.
Thank you. You too.
Have a
Take
good
care.
day. Bye
You
bye.
too.